Now, I'm saying there's at least 5 categories of atheists. There's 2 major categories of agnostics, and um, probably 2 categories, I'm saying at minimum, 2 categories of skeptics. But as Stephen has pointed out, there's now 45,000 denominations. Wow, that's a pile. I would question that number, but let's just grant it, okay?
It's probably 45,000 different church. Like there's a lot of non-denominationals that would end up in their own bracket as a denomination. Yeah. And so you got individual churches that are included in that number
but
too.
It's a very good question. I mean,
it's totally legit.
There's not just as there are a lot of different categories of atheists, so there are different categories of Christians. At least it certainly appears that way when you look at denomination. There's 3 major categories: Catholics, Protestants, and the Orthodox. Those are the 3 major categories if you study church history. And then in each one of those, you have a lot of different. It's actually a bit of a fallacy to say that all Catholics believe these things right here, because in my own personal experience, no, there is a spectrum of beliefs within Catholicism, same within the Orthodox, and same within Protestantism. So how do I account for that? And bottom line, let's say you go to physics. I did my first degree in physics, and I wasn't aware of it when I started my degree. But by the time I finished, I realized, there's different schools of thought in theoretical physics, in cosmology. And sometimes these different schools of thought get very nasty, very nasty. We're talking about terrible things said at physics conferences by some physicists about other physicists and everything. I had no idea. It was actually disappointing to me, because I thought physics is above all of that. But I found that. So what do you do in cases like this? Well, let's go back to Christianity now. What do we do with all these denominations and so forth? Personally, the single most important question in my mind is, well, what are they? I'm not so concerned about. It's interesting to see how they arose. For example, the Evangelical Free Church arose in Scandinavia, and it was primarily because of geographic separation from other Protestant churches, say in Germany or in England or so forth. So there's a ton of that. Then there's a ton of people who might, more so in the past, who said, well, I think this Bible verse means this and that, and that's so important, I'm starting a new church on this. And eventually you got a new denomination starting.
And you had churches in the recent past that were fully racist.
Oh, yeah.
And so denominations came out of that because they're like, this is wrong. And so.
Oh, yeah. Like you've got some, and I would hate to brand an entire denomination as racist, unless it's right in there. Like the Mormon Church, I think they've changed that now. They got another revelation. But there was a time when the idea of people, let's say people of color, being in leadership within the Mormon Church was not on. That was not going to happen. But I think I'm almost sure that's changed now. I read that. I'm not a Mormon, so I don't know the details there. But
I bet you there was a bit of a split between the 2 different Mormon views on that, where some people would have said, no, I'm not believing that. Yeah. And that's how a new denomination starts is.
And I would class Mormon, the Church of Latter-day Saints, as being outside of Catholicism, Protestantism, and Orthodox. If you look at the doctrines there, you would say, no, this is something totally different in some very important areas. But let's go back to the denominations. So personally, me, when I move to a different city, I don't really care what denomination the church that I go to is. What I care about is, well, are they committed to trying to do their best to see what the Bible says on these issues and then teach that? Is that the commitment? So, for example, I grew up in what's called an associated gospel church, which would be similar to maybe a Baptist church, although Baptist, there's quite a spectrum there. But then when I moved to Winnipeg to go to university, I decided I'm going to a different denomination every year. So, but some I really liked. So I'm going 2 years to this one. So I went to a Mennonite Brethren church. I went to a non-denominational church, I guess they can call. I went to a Pentecostal church, and I went to an evangelical free church. And some of those I spent more years than just one. In fact, in the end, I didn't float around much anymore because I really liked the particular evangelical free church in Winnipeg, and I ended up going there. Now, then I moved to, where did I move to next? Oh yeah, Vancouver. So I became a member of the Mennonite Brethren Church in Vancouver. And then when we moved back to Winnipeg, I went back to the Evangelical Free Church that I was a member there. And then we moved here, and I became a member of a non-denominational church, which is kind of had Brethren roots. So the totally different denominations, but the thing that I look for is basically they're all the same. These ones that I've attended. And why are they the same? Because the teachings of Jesus Christ and the teachings of the Bible are central to what they try and promote. And what I'm observing as I have talked with a lot of different denominations is there's a convergence happening here. The previous denominations, which are largely due to geographical separations and differences of opinion, as we now discuss this on a broader level, there's a convergence so that I find very little difference. Sometimes, let's say, between a Baptist church and an Associated Gospel Church and an Evangelical Free Church, or a denominational one that I'm attending right now, which is just a community church. Very little difference. But we kind of got off track here on how do I determine which is the right one? There is no one denomination. You will find hypocrites in every denomination, but not just in churches. You will find hypocrites in government, in environmental movements. You'll find hypocrites in the halls of science and universities today. You'll find them everywhere. Hypocrisy is a standard way of human nature. That's it. So we can't look at hypocrites to decide which way we're going to go. I don't toss science because I see people are fabricating the results over in the lab over there. I don't do that. I just say, well, here's the standard, and I want to work in an area where the standard is honored. Same with Christianity. Is the standard being honored, which is the Bible?